Oh, that shocked me. I wasn't ready. I'm sorry. Hey, I'm not ready. I'm not ready. It's 5:36. Good morning. It is the Nashville's Morning News. And it's time for the gang of three amigos. You got me, Jonny B, in for Dan Mandis, who's on vacation. He does return on Monday. And, of course, and flying in my place is none other than Jeff Malinoff. Good morning, Jeff.
Good morning, good sir.
And good morning to my buddy Ken Weaver in the newsroom. What's happening, brother Ken?
Good morning, boys. Yes.
Well, Ken, if I'm ever going to get devastating news that's going to stop me in my tracks, I want it to come from you.
Okay.
Because that's the only saving grace yesterday was I was in the car and I heard about the passing of Joe Bonzel.
Yeah, man.
That was tough.
Iconic voice. What an iconic voice in gospel and country music.
You're not kidding. And don't forget, he also guested with Sawyer Brown on their song. What was it, Cattin' Around?
Outgoing cattin', and I'm glad
That's
you
it.
mentioned it, brother
Yes.
Jonny B.
Still bop and our cars run hot without cutting the food.
We're tearing the town, got the top laid down like we're back in school.
I remember when that first came out, man.
Oh, yeah.
I'd probably been a country DJ for 3 years.
Wow.
I was 18, so, 2.5 years. And, starting out as a teenager in country music, as a heavy metal fan, was, kind of odd. But I grew to appreciate the genre and country music. And, of course, Joe Bonzel was a huge part of it because the Oak Ridge Boys, by the time I became a DJ in the early 80s, man, they were tops.
Yeah, they were.
You couldn't turn on the radio. You couldn't turn on country radio without hearing an Oak Ridge Boys song.
Well, it was just perfect. And I got to hand it to their manager, Jim Halsey, because I feel blessed. I feel blessed that I got to be around this as a youngster. But this guy, he's a genius and he was with the Oak Ridge Boys especially, because he told them all you need is a song. Mm-hmm. We need a song,
just one song,
one big. He said one that will put you guys forever, and he found it in Elvira, and Elvira. I mean, I've never seen a record take off like that one did.
Dude, I'm telling you, 1981.
Yes.
That you talk about a song that was on the radio all the time, but here's the thing. That was played on rock and roll stations.
Yes, it was.
It wasn't just country stations. They played that on every kind of radio station. I remember in 1981, good grief, man. I was 13 years old.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you couldn't turn on the radio without hearing Elvira. And I mean, after that,
Bobby Sue. I'm setting fancy free.
Sitting fancy free.
I mean, these guys, when you think about all the records they have put out, and not to mention, you're talking about a group that started out in gospel. In fact, none of the four members of the Oak Ridge Boys, I would say, were really original members. It was originally just a gospel group.
Yeah.
And then they eventually got William Lee Golden, and then, of course, others started joining. And then you got Richard and Dwayne and Joe, and they decided we're going to go country. And I remember, because I remember my father talking about it with people, and I don't know, man. I think they may be making a mistake. And, I mean, people really thought they were nuts for trying to cross over to country. And it wasn't just cross over to country. The Oak Ridge Boys crossed over to superstar status.
Yes, they did.
They
did indeed.
And so it's quite a feat what they pulled off. And Joe loved the Phil Valentine show. I mean, he really did. He called in a lot. He wanted to be on to, plug books that he was writing, and to plug whatever they were doing, and sometimes just to talk. And we just got to. I think Phil knew him more than I did. I didn't. I've only met Joe face to face once, on the phone quite a bit. In fact, he woke me up one morning. I was getting ready for work, and my phone rings, and it's Joe Bonzel. I went, "Oh, hey, Joe, what's happening?" Just having breakfast. And he was telling me about Craig Morgan and that he wanted us to have Craig Morgan on. Mm-hmm. So that's cool. I mean, that kind of stuff's cool.
Yeah,
but
it is cool. I mean, I heard you talking earlier about how a lot of these artists actually listen to WTN.
they do.
And sometimes I think about that and I think, that's pretty cool, man. So, because I listen to them.
And that's the case. One interesting evening for me was at a gathering, and I recognized Waylon Jennings' guitar player.
Yeah.
But I wasn't going to gurm him. I wasn't going to be a fan.
Right. Well, you weren't going to bother him.
No, not at all. And back in those days, I smoked cigarettes. And so I went out there was a break, and I went out to smoke a cigarette. And all of a sudden, who stands beside me but Waylon's guitar player, Gordon Payne. And so we're out talking, and we're kind of talking about the weather and, just small talk. And then he stops and he goes, "Can I ask you a question?" And I said, "Yeah." He goes, Are you Jonny B? I went, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, man, I'm a big fan." And I said, "Well, Gordon, I'm a big fan as well." And he said, "I know, I hear you." But they do a lot of stars. I've met more country artists through talk radio than I ever did music radio.
Yeah, well, it's the same.
So this is something you got to look forward to there, Jeff, is that you're going to meet a lot of musicians.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, man.
Well, it's interesting what you were saying earlier is that, in talk radio, I can't wait to stop listening to talk and listen to music.
Yes.
But it's the other way around, I guess, for some of the musicians. They can't wait to get off the road and just chill and listen to talk, I guess.
Well, I think everyone ought to go through, you ought to watch a record being made, like recorded. Mm-hmm. It's not as exciting as you might think.
It's hard work.
It's hard work. It's very tedious. And if you're just sitting there watching it, it can get boring.
Yeah. Yes.
Unless you're involved in it, you're about to go to sleep.
Well, we got one more thing from Joe Bonsall coming out, man. Apparently he finished a book.
Yes, he did.
And it is due out in November.
I See Myself.
Yeah, I See Myself.
Yeah.
So that'll be something to look forward to from Joe. And, man, I thank him for all of the great music that he and those boys put together and that we'll be able to enjoy the rest of our lives.
Exactly. I thank them myself as well, Ken. I don't know. It just feels like we're losing a lot of our what I say, childhood, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, people we grew up with that were just always there. The Oak Ridge Boys have just always been there.
Yes. And it's been that way for me, like I said, because my father worked really closely with Jim Halsey, and my sister, who lives out in Tulsa, at one time worked with my dad's radio station there, and also worked with the Halsey Company.
Yeah,
and she had to go attend Oak Ridge Boys concerts.
She had to. It was mandatory.
Hey, Halsey told the radio station, everybody on the staff, "You've got to go."
Yeah. What a slave driver he was.
Well, it's like It's like her husband told Jim Halsey. He said, he told Dwayne Allen, I guess. He said, Dwayne, he said, we were forced to go to a lot of your shows, but he said, I enjoyed it. He said, thank goodness you guys were great. And I hate the fact I never got to see them live.
I never did either, man.
I think that because I heard they were just fantastic live, and I can believe it and I'm praying the Goldens may keep their family show going, even though they lost Rusty. I hope they keep going because, man, that show is phenomenal.
Well, on the way in this morning, I was listening to one of the Oak Ridge Boys' latest gospel albums that they put out.
Yes,
Rock of Ages. Hymns and gospel favorites.
Oh, yeah.
And if you get a chance, listen to that one, man. I mean, it has got some great old time country gospel songs. And my favorite one on there is I Love to Tell the Story.
Oh,
that's one of my favorite old hymns.
Yeah.
But this one is just full of it. They put this out in 2022, according to Apple. And it's just Rock of Ages, Hymns, and Gospel Favorites. Oak Ridge Boys right there on the front. I mean, man, they've been putting out albums.
Oh, forever.
And they were on the road And
They're still on the road.
They're still on the road. Joe had to come off the road in
Right.
January because of his condition, unfortunately.
Right.
But, yeah, man, they're still out there drawing crowds.
Well, and our thoughts and prayers go out to them because the Oaks have been hit by, they lost Dwayne's wife,
Yeah.
Easter Sunday. They just, William Lee Golden's son, Rusty, July 1st, we lost him.
Yeah.
So they've been hit by a lot of tragedy, and our thoughts and prayers go out to them. And just want to thank the Oak Ridge boys, and especially to the spirit of Joe Bonzel. Thank you for some great years for radio for Ken Weaver, myself, and many other people.
Yes,
and
sir.
Thank you for all the entertainment and the wonderful music you've given us. And man, this one hurt. I'll just tell you that it was tough to hear that we lost Joe Bonzel. And to the country music community, we love you guys. You guys are always good to us.
Absolutely.
You guys are always good to us. And I'm telling you, it's always been said, two of the nicest stars you'll ever meet as far as music goes, they're either in blues or country. Mm-hmm. And that I find that to be very true.
Well, blues and country go hand in hand.
That's right. Well, in fact, you wouldn't have country music had it not been for the blues.
That's right.
See, I hate to tell Beyonce, but you weren't the first to put black feel into country music. It's always been there, baby. But anyway, 548, and we also lost someone else. And Ken, from your home state, Oklahoma,
Yeah.
Senator James Inhofe.
Yep. I've got a good Senator Inhofe story for you.
Well, lay it on us.
All right. Whenever I was a cub reporter at KVOO in Tulsa, Oklahoma, I was sent over to Senator Inhofe's office to interview him. I cannot remember what about. That newsroom was just go out and get some tape. Go out and record somebody, bring it back, and let's play it. So I went over to Senator Inhofe's office, and his first time meeting him, it was just he and I was going to interview him about some sort of legislation. I want to say this was around 94, 95, somewhere around there. And we get finished with the interview, and he looks at me and he says, "You're conservative, aren't you, son?" And I said, "Well, I like to play it right down the middle, Senator." And he goes, "You're conservative." He said, "You have a good day now."
That sounds like something Phil Valentine told me, man.
Right.
He told me that one time. He said, because we were talking politics. I said, I think I'm kind of down the middle and maybe lean to the right a little, maybe left on a few other things. And he went, "No, you're not." I said, "What?" He goes, "Dude," he said, "you are so conservative and you don't even realize
And
it."
you don't even know it.
He said, "I think you're more conservative than me."
Yeah. Senator Inhofe, man, he was a big supporter of the military.
Big supporter of the military. And then one thing I love to, if my memory is correct, and maybe one of you two guys can help me, but it seemed like when the discussion got to global warming, at one time he came in with a snowball. And didn't he throw it?
Something like that. I can't remember for sure.
And I loved whenever he would call into the Phil Valentine show because he was always so nice. And, of course, he loved Phil and Phil loved him.
Yeah.
And in fact, if you ever want to see James Inhofe and probably want some of his best, go to YouTube and find Phil's movie. It's on there, An Inconsistent Truth. And James Inhofe is on there. And he is family. Just a great guy.
I like how, the mainstream out there, the headlines are Oklahoma Senator and climate change denier.
I was going to say that multiple news stations or multiple like AP and all these other places on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
They're basically saying the biggest climate denier refused to believe it was man-made
Climate denier.
Military backer, basically, is what they call them.
Yeah. How dare he back the military?
Well, and I got the same impression as I was driving in. I heard ABC News on our station. And, old Dick, Richard, what's his name? Richard Cantu?
Yeah.
Richard Can't Do. Anyway, he was just real snarky
Oh, yeah.
in talking about Senator Inhofe. And, I'm about to the point I want to just call ABC and demand, get Dick off the air.
Yeah.
We don't need Dick. We don't need Mr. Can't Do. But,
Yeah, and Senator Inhofe wrote a book.
yes, he did.
Yeah. The Greatest Hoax. How the global warming conspiracy threatens your future.
Well, and it's right. It is. I can't believe people still are buying it.
Well, it's how it's being weaponized.
Yes.
Yeah. The Green New Deal itself is one of the most ridiculous things. Like giving every single piece of property to the government and then they say they'll give it back to you. Probably the biggest red flag of them all.
Well, you may want to ask the Native Americans.
Absolutely, brother
Yeah,
Jeff.
you may want to ask the Native Americans about that one.
Yeah.
How that worked out for them.
They could tell you some stories, that's for sure.
Yes, they sure could. It's 5:52. We got news coming up at the top of the hour. And, of course, we've got, man, you've got to hear this. It's must-hear radio. This doctor, specialist with Parkinson's. You won't believe what he had to say about Joe Biden. We'll be playing that at 6:05. But first, let's find out from Ken Weaver what's going to happen in the news.